5 examples of excessive force, 3 federal criminal charges, and 1 super corrupt cop. Well, actually, there's like way more than 1 corrupt cop, but it doesn't sound as good in the intro. I mean, I'm trying to count down. You get it. Anyways, 2 weeks ago, I dropped this video breaking down the lawsuit against Kentucky State Trooper James Cameron Wright, seen here looking like a monster douchebag, for excessive force and for violations of Dawson Blevins' constitutional rights. And you guys loved the video. I mean, we were shining a light on some of the corruption in law enforcement. In that same video, I mentioned the federal criminal indictment against Trooper Wright, as well as 2 other Kentucky State Police troopers. And today, we're going to break down that indictment, at least as it relates to Trooper Wright. Hey, I'm America's attorney. I've been a lawyer for over 23 years. I've helped over 1.2 million people. Let's jump right into this crazy case against this dirty cop. In 2021, James Cameron Wright was named Trooper of the Year, praised for his service and professionalism. You might remember from my previous video that was a year after he beat the crap out of someone he was arresting. So service and professionalism might not mean the same thing to you as it does in Kentucky. But anyways, just a few years later, he's now at the center of a federal criminal case. In March of 2025, a federal grand jury indicted Wright on multiple charges, including 2 counts of using unreasonable force and 1 count of perjury. These charges stem from multiple events, including an arrest on or about March 5th of 2020 and a second arrest on or about March 12th of 2024. The indictment itself doesn't give much detail surrounding the arrest, other than describing Wright's behavior as willfully depriving the victims of the right to be free from unreasonable force by a law enforcement officer. Using Dawson Blevins' lawsuit, we can cross-reference the dates and deduce that Trooper Wright is being indicted because of the Justin Halcomb incident and the John Millett incident. And by incident, I do mean when he just beat those guys up. Blevins' lawsuit describes both of those events in much greater detail than does the indictment. On March 5th, 2020, Justin Halcomb was involved in a chase with Kentucky troopers. According to Blevins' lawsuit, the chase ended when Halcomb decided to comply by stopping his vehicle, stepping out, and placing his hands on the truck. Trooper Wright then, allegedly, threw him to the ground, shoved his head into the asphalt, and repeatedly and gratuitously struck him as Mr. Halcomb is then piled on by multiple officers. The indictment reinforces the truth of that description by stating, defendant James Cameron Wright kicked victim 1 about the head and shoulders and torso without legal justification. Right. Now let's look at how the Blevins lawsuit describes the John Millett incident. On March 12th, 2024, Millett was stopped by Trooper Wright and asked to step out of his car. As Millett was exiting his vehicle, despite not showing any signs of resisting other than having his cell phone in his hand, having your cell phone in your hand is not exactly resisting. Trooper Wright then grabbed Millett and threw him to the ground. Once on the ground, Millett is instructed to put his hands behind his back, and after complying, he's still tased by Trooper Wright twice for approximately 10 seconds. After being tased, Millett is handcuffed, pulled to his feet, and then inexplicably thrown to the ground again by Trooper Wright. We're kind of seeing a pattern here. The federal indictment describes this event by simply stating, defendant James Cameron Wright tased victim 3 without legal justification. Whoever wrote that sentence is a really big fan of understatement. These 2 events are the basis for the 2 counts of violating Title 18 U.S.C. Section 242. Now, as you almost certainly already know, 18 U.S.C. 242 is a federal civil rights law that makes it a crime for anyone acting under the color of law, which is a police officer or a government official, to willfully deprive someone of their constitutional rights. This includes using excessive force, making unlawful arrests, or committing acts of abuse while performing official duties. So, like in the James Cameron Wright situation, this would be like just throwing him to the ground and beating him. If bodily injury, like a fractured spine or death, results from those attacks, then penalties can become much more severe. The 3rd count against Trooper Wright is perjury. According to the indictment, and according to Blevins' lawsuit, Trooper Wright lied during a deposition for yet another excessive force lawsuit by stating that he did not strike the plaintiff in that case at all. However, a basement video exposed these statements to be a lie. If convicted on all counts, Wright faces up to 25 years in a federal prison. Now, Wright, along with 2 fellow troopers, appeared before a U.S. magistrate judge on April 3rd of this year, following the March 4th indictment, charging him with excessive force and perjury. His trial date is currently scheduled for September of 2025, when a federal district court judge will oversee the proceedings, and if he is convicted, determine his sentence. I wonder if you agree with me that this federal indictment is kind of a big deal. For years and years, law enforcement officers have been able to violate the rights of United States citizens with almost uniform impunity. Okay, that was a pun, right? Because of their uniform? Anyways, in the last 5 years or so, we're starting to see the beginnings of a slight change in how these abuses of power by police are policed by the government. Too long were prosecutor offices willing to look the other way when their friends who investigate crimes were caught committing crimes. But the fact that any law enforcement agency is now willing to indict a fellow law enforcement officer for a crime committed in the course and scope of the officer's law enforcement duties is a great step in the right direction. I'm not meaning to say that prosecutors have never done this in the past, only that it seems like it's become more widespread that abusive law enforcement officers are from time to time being called to account. But in the past, judges and even some juries have given law enforcement officers a break when evaluating their abuses of power. I'm hopeful that the truth is discovered in this case with James Cameron Wright, and that the court system will make sure that he receives an appropriate punishment for his crimes. Alleged. Actually, you know what? I don't mean. They're not alleged. They're on video. And if he wants to sue me for slander, bring it on, buddy. And while I'm encouraged by the federal court indictment, it's not like this is all that could be done. First of all, it's been a long time coming. These attacks occurred in 2020. These actions described in the federal court indictment are also criminal offenses under Kentucky state law. Specifically, their batteries, their assaults, their false imprisonments. It's a shame that we don't see the prosecutors in the state court system standing up for these victims. But it's not too late. If you are a resident of the county in which any of these crimes were apparently committed by Trooper Wright, you should reach out to the prosecutor's office and let them know that you would like for them to enforce the law equally, without regard to the status of Trooper Wright as a disgraced former law enforcement officer. Prosecutors are elected officials, and when they're at their best, they're mindful of the concerns of their constituents. So make your voice heard. Let them know that you want cops to stop breaking the law, and when they do break the law, that you want them to be punished just like everybody else. What are your thoughts on these repeated allegations against Kentucky Fried Chicken State Trooper James Cameron Wright? When convicted, if convicted, what do you feel would be a fair sentence for him? Drop your pro se opinion down below in the comments and let me know what you really think. And don't forget, while you're down there, to lawyer up with me, America's Attorney, by hitting that subscribe button with your greasy little fingers. And I'll be back soon with more legal breakdowns. I don't want you to miss them. See you then. Okay, that was a fun, oh, wow. Title 18, Section, wow. Federal District Court judge will preside